good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Camera Aspects, this is number 5. We've made it finally to the Polo bar outside Liverpool Street Station. We've got our coffee, we've got our tea, and we're going to have a great chat today talking about, Michael, what's the subject title? We can't work out what the title is.
We'll think of one by the time this goes live, but as you and I both do, we've been participating a lot in social media recently, and I've just kind of got the impression that a lot of discussions in the photography communities seem to be going through that fashionable stage once again. Maybe it's a time of year thing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Of talking about gear. And I've got to be honest with you, Paul, I thought we were over this.
I did as well.
I thought we were over it. You and I are well and truly over it.
Got my camera sorted, don't need anymore.
We are over it. But it seems that it sort of ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Communities at large seem to want to talk about gear for a while, and it peters out. Then everyone's interested in talking about the craft, which was certainly the case for the first part of this year, it feels. I remember being involved in a lot of craft-based conversations, but it seems like we're back to, once again, talking about the subject of cameras and lenses. And full disclosure, you and I have been a little bit guilty of talking about gear the past few episodes.
Yeah, but that's because it's topics. You just mentioned that the camera firms bring out their cameras every sort of, 4-6 months now.
Yes, so regularly,
So hobbyists get caught in the headlights, and they say, a new camera's come out, that's obviously going to improve my photography, and this is where our discussion is going to develop onwards. That camera is not going to improve your photography.
Well, it could, but the question is by how much, isn't it, really?
Exactly
It's going to be marginal gains, and the term marginal gains is knocked around a lot in the cycling community. And the question that's asked, the cycling community, road cycling community in particular, because it's all about speed, isn't it, and aerodynamics, that good stuff, and weight. It's all about marginal gains and how much speed can you buy. And I think it's the same question that needs to be asked with cameras. How much creativity or improvement or better, I don't know how to say it, can you buy with a camera? To answer it straight off the bat, I think you can buy between 5 and 10%. No matter what level of photography you're at. I take that back. I think the more experienced and the more advanced a photographer you are, the smaller that number becomes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think in actual fact, I was going to say it's closer to 5%. What in actual fact will improve in your photography if you get the next level up in camera that comes to market. You talk about cycling, I'll talk about golf. Guys will go out and buy the new driver just to hit the ball another 5 yards, 10 yards down the fairway. What they don't realise is, if they're not a great golfer, that's 5 or 10 yards into the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not straight.
Let's put that into context, sticking with the golf analogy. Let's suggest then what's an average drive, 275 yards, 250 yards?
For we'll say a mid-handicapper, you're talking about between 210 and 240.
So what, now you're becoming 215, 245?
Exactly right.
Big deal.
It doesn't make
and
for
that extra 5 yards, how much are we talking?
New drivers these days, 350 quid.
So 350 pounds for 5
yards.
And it's the same with cycling. You can go ahead and spend £1,000 on a bike, which in most people's books, mine certainly is a generous amount of money.
Yep.
But for £5,000, yes, you can go and buy a bike that's half a kilo lighter. Yep. That's only going to save you, a sort of 2 minutes over the course of an hour and a half.
And the only way you're going to improve your cycling is to practice and get fitter.
Spend
the
time
only way you're
saddle.
going to improve your golf is by practicing your golf shots and
being out on the course
and going out on the course on a regular basis. Practice before you play, and then you play. That's the only way you're going to improve. Same applies to photography.
Exactly that. So hit the streets, get out there, practice.
Hit the streets, practice, get involved, experiment, do different things. Don't do the bog standard stuff all the time. If you like your street photography, don't just take photographs of people walking past you. Look at different aspects of your camera, the filters that are available, different aspects in terms of the camera aspects, sorry about the pun, with regards to the shutter speed, the aperture settings. Mix it up. Don't be frightened to drop the EV to -2 or -3 or even -5 if you've got that option to. Experiment with your camera, and you will find that by doing that with the camera you've got, the familiarity you've got, that will improve your photography, not the next down the line.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right. 2 things to add to that there, that knowing what your camera can do is one thing, knowing what it can't do is another. The idea that, for example, you know that your camera can get a good exposure when the needle is at 0 or -1, -2, but you actually tried to take your camera to -2, -3, -3.5 stops to see actually what happens. You never know, you might get a very pleasing contrasty look.
Very true.
So you might find your style that way, and a lot of photographers talk about finding their style, but if you're just doing what you learn on YouTube from some of those big named educating photographers, or make sure your exposure is on the 0 or half a stop over, half a stop under, you're not going to learn the extremes. And I think there's as much to be learned from getting something wrong as there is from getting it right. Well, in fact, more.
Very true. And the other thing is, you mentioned there with regards to learning what your camera can do, of course, learning what you can edit outside of the camera on Lightroom and the other editing processes to basically improve your photograph. And by learning all these things, it improves your
just
photography.
Waving
to the Facebook Live. It's great we got the two going at the same time.
Stereo, I'm getting confused.
Running out on battery on Facebook Live at the moment, so I may lose that in a minute.
They might have to just tune in later then.
And have to tune in later on camera aspects on the YouTube channel.
Half a show,
yeah.
Maybe that's what we should do from now on.
You just got a review there, and that's it.
Is that distracting?
So we just lost the Facebook Live. So those that were on
but
Facebook Live,
the point I think I wanted
later
to make today was if you've got some money burning a hole in your pocket and you're thinking, oh, what lens should I buy next? Hold fire. Don't buy a lens next, unless of course you need it for a job, unless you're a professional photographer who needs it for a new look or a specific purpose. In that case, you should already be viewing your lenses and your cameras as tools for the job anyway. But if you're not, perhaps consider spending that money on a model, a studio, some lighting equipment, some modifiers,
or going on a
or
workshop,
a trip, or a journey,
workshop with a recognised tutor, and someone who knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So just a point in passing though on getting more lenses. 9 times out of 10, when you buy these new cameras, you're getting an 1855 zoom lens. And interestingly enough, a good friend of mine who just bought the XT2 with an 1855, he was asking me almost immediately, what lens shall I buy now? And I was saying to him, don't bother. As it turns out, the XF 1855 Fuji is a fantastic kit lens, and to be honest, there's nothing really you need more than that unless you want to go outside those focal lengths. But what I in actual fact said to him, I said, well, the way, if you're thinking about getting another lens and you want to keep your equipment more compact, see where you are in actual fact using that zoom lens on a regular basis in terms of its focal length. If you're between 30 and 40 mil, then maybe the choice of a 35 mil lens would be ideally suited for you to purchase. On the basis of keeping your equipment light. If you're going to go and do street photography, one camera, one lens invariably is all that you need. And that new 35mm, I'm talking Fuji here, the new F2 is a great lens, nice and compact, and does a superb job. But coming back to the point you're making about learning about your photography, there does come a time where you do need to be taken outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
And that's the only way you're going to do it, is go along to a workshop with a photographer that knows what he's talking about.
I totally agree. I absolutely totally agree. I think investing in education is the way to go. And I think there seems to be, at least looking at it from afar, if you like, that in the US, they are quite keen and quite open to the idea of education.
Yeah,
they do it.
They're mad on workshops. You know, you've only got to see the amount of workshops and tutorials that are available. Kelby one, if you mention one, and there's the other one.
Learn.
And
Lynda.com.
Lynda.com, that was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And of course
Creative Live,
and of course you could join the Arcanum as well. But those sort of sites are set and geared, and they are Americanized. There's no doubt about it. And they love to teach and they love to learn. Something about the psyche in the UK. You join a camera club, and invariably the members of the camera club who have been established and have been winning the competitions for a long time do not want to impart knowledge onto the new joiner.
The dark arts,
that's a very difficult thing. So really, there's lots of workshops out there in the UK that you. What's it going to cost you? Anywhere between £100 and £300. Well, that's a quarter of the price of a new camera, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so I just want to mention there, for example, so I'm going to talk about him in 2 examples here. A good friend of mine who shoots all my weddings with me, Neil Graham.
Yep.
So just going back to the idea, in fact, no, we'll talk about the training, for example, first. Neil went on a training course last year that was £450 or so, and at first I thought, seems a bit steep. And I had to remind myself, no, that's an investment in Neil's time there.
Yes.
If you're buying a thing, a product, a tangible item,
Yes.
then yes, you have to assess the value of that item. What's it going to give you in return, in terms of creativity and or return on your investment cash-wise? But what Neil got from his course, he uses for me at every wedding. So it was a fantastic investment. He went on his lighting course with a guy called Brett Hartness.
Yeah.
And it's added another tool to Neil's photography toolbox.
Yeah.
In the evenings when the lights go down, rather than just trying to blast light into a scene to correctly expose it, Neil's now using light more creatively.
Yeah.
And it's added another dimension to that part of what we offer our clients in the evening. And I must admit, fantastic investment. £450, or I think that's what it costs.
Yeah.
Well spent indeed.
I think if you're going to come over a workshop where you have learnt some tricks of the trade, it is money well spent. Now, you've used an example there, £450. It does sound expensive, but in terms of, do I want to go and buy the X Pro 2? What's that now, £1,200? It's a third of the price, and I've improved my photography. I think it's an excellent way to basically look at it in terms of, we all want to improve. We all want to basically have our work appreciated and liked. And the only way that's going to happen is by gaining more knowledge, not by buying every reiteration of camera that comes out.
I totally agree. And the other thing I want to say about Neil as well is he practiced, I should say, exactly what we are preaching right now. For the longest of time, up until about 3 years ago, Neil was running with a Canon 60D. He did, granted, have some nice glass in it. When we were both shooting Canon, we shared the glass as well. I had mine, he had his, and we interchanged quite seamlessly when we were shooting weddings. But for a long time, Neil was shooting work with the 60D that was way above and beyond what many people would consider the 60D to be capable of.
Yeah.
I think on numerous occasions Neil was asked, as most photographers are when they see an outstanding image, wow, that's an amazing picture, what did you shoot it on? And they want to know settings and equipment.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would be left with their jaw on the floor to know that it was just, quote unquote, a 60D. He was shooting sports, fast action, anything that was difficult to shoot. Neil was doing it with a camera that I imagine when it was designed was not designed with that purpose in mind. But Neil was shooting way above and beyond what that camera was really capable of.
So it could be, sorry to interrupt you, but it could be there said, why was he shooting above the standard with a 60D? I would put it to you that because he was familiar with the way the camera was working and he was comfortable with the way the camera.
Yep.
He was comfortable with all the menus and all the relative knobs and buttons which he used to take his photographs.
Yep.
So in actual fact, it's not the camera anymore taking the photograph, it's himself and using his eye.
Neil hit the ceiling with a 60D and his lenses, and he knew exactly what it is capable of, and conversely what it was not capable of. There were times where the camera would be put away. It said, well, there's no point, I can't do that. He knew his camera innately, and that allowed him to use every percentage of that camera. Everything that camera had to give, Neil would squeeze it and get out of it. Neil then moved on to a 7D Mark II, now he's got his 1DX, and again, he's unlocked the extra 10, 15, 20%.
There comes a time when there is a necessity to move on in terms of camera.
Well, let me just add there, when Neil was using the 60D and the 7D2, he was not earning a living or making money from his camera at the time. So in addition to Neil's ability to use his camera being reached, Neil then also started shooting a lot of paid gigs, more wedding photography. Also, he's now shooting some Premier League and FA Cup football as well.
Okay, so he needs the one.
Not only has he outgrown the camera, but also his application of the camera has also grown. Therefore, the need for a more capable, weather-sealed tool.
You've made a very good point there. He outgrew the camera, not the other way round.
Correct.
He needed a better camera to attain the photographs that he was capable of taking, not hoping that the camera would give him that opportunity to take those photographs.
Correct. Yeah. And again, I said at the top of the show that I was involved in a couple of gear type conversations recently, and one of the most recent conversations I had was someone posted to say, "Oh, I'm going away travelling. I need a light compact camera for travels. Anyone make any recommendations?" I was the first one to suggest, and I was very varied in my responses. I suggested 3 cameras, naturally being Olympus tuned,
Olympus, yeah.
I suggested the Olympus OMD EM10,
Yeah.
which is the very basic entry-level OMD. I then suggested the Fuji X-T10
Yeah.
and the Sony A6000. I said all three of them are great. You know, I didn't sort of show any bias towards one camera band.
No.
But of course, everyone then suggested, oh no, XT1 and this lens and that. Hang on a second. I'm not saying the XT1 is a huge camera, but it's not. But you're starting to get away from what the lady asked here.
Exactly
Small,
right.
compact travel camera.
Yeah.
And I think I met the brief by giving 3 different options that met exactly what it was like. Small, compact travel camera.
3 small compact
that didn't break
cameras.
didn't break the bank.
No, very
yeah,
true.
but people quickly escalated it. You know, I'm
the price
sure
on, buy this then,
on
get
the
this
trajectory that conversation was going, I thought it would be a day before someone suggested that a Nikon D5 would be the
Well,
ideal
that probably
camera.
would have been the next day. Someone would have stepped in and said, "Oh, you've got to have that."
Yeah,
Because it focuses quicker than all the others.
of course.
But
yeah.
it is amazing. But you see, we're driven this way because the camera manufacturers are consistently bringing out new versions of their cameras, these small iterations of their cameras. I'm not going to mention any camera names. We've done enough of that in the past. But every camera manufacturer is guilty of doing that. Obviously, a new camera firm that is new into a market, and I would probably sort of tentatively say Olympus, but definitely Fuji. There's going to be more improvements that they're going to be able to offer with their cameras than the other main three. So
That's because those cameras at those other main 3, as you say, are more mature systems.
they're more mature systems, and they
yeah.
basically inherited. In the case of Sony, inherited quite a lot of. Although they probably would say they've built it from scratch, but they have inherited quite a lot from the Minolta days through to what they're doing now.
Yeah.
But you take the likes of Fuji, Olympus, and Panasonic, those sort of things. That basically those cameras have basically been designed from ground roots up, and they are learning by their mistakes as they go along. So you're going to probably see more new cameras coming to market from those 3 manufacturers, but that doesn't mean to say you've got to go and buy every damn one that is produced just because I'm shooting with an X Pro 1. I'm not going to buy the Pro 2. I don't see any necessity to do so. I love my Pro 1. It's the go-to camera for me with the 35mm lens on. Job done. I've got my 1855 as a backup lens if I want to go a little bit wider. In that saying, I would have just in passing, if you are thinking about, do I need to buy another lens for whatever reason, go and hire it. Our walkabout, which we're going to talk about later, Michael, on this Sunday, I've actually hired the XF 16mm.
Is it the 25 equivalent?
Which is the 25 equivalent.
Yeah.
16mm Fuji XF Fujinon lens for that day, and really just for me to say, well, okay, is it a lens that I'm going to want to purchase further down the line? I have in the past hired out the 90mm, which is a superb lens, but I came to the conclusion it's not a lens which I'm going to be putting on the camera on a regular basis.
Sure.
So that's another way, and you can do this with cameras as well. You can hire the camera out if you feel as though there's a need for you to find out whether those cameras that camera is going to be worthwhile you spending that extra bucks for.
Yep.
So definitely consider hiring some of this equipment before you put your hand in your pocket and pass over that very, very needy cash, which you've decided is going to go on equipment. But that's what I'm doing this coming weekend. On Sunday I'll be using the 16mm
Good idea.
lens just to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Just to see how it goes.
I'm considering making a point this weekend by shooting with my original OMD EM5, which is a contrast to detect autofocus only, again, quote unquote, but very basic camera, 16 megapixels, only, I don't know, very few focus points, no, not really any notable tracking ability of any kind of anything to shout about. More to prove the point than anything about what we are talking about right now. I know the camera inside out, which is one of the reasons I will consider using it. But moreover, the point being is you don't need a 1DX, a 5DS, whatever the case may be.
In terms of
to
talking
do
about
this.
in street photography, definitely not.
No, in terms of specs, forget about form factor for a
spec,
second, but you don't need all that capability to achieve what we're achieving. You really don't. What you need is an eye, and to be preparedness first and foremost.
Preparedness, knowledge. And basically from knowledge comes basically from good tutelage. So look out for your workshops, guys. And I'm going to be posting up some workshops, which hopefully you might be interested to sign up for. And those sort of things. Thank you. The thing is, what we're saying here to you is, don't get fooled by the manufacturers saying this camera is going to improve your photography. You improve your photography by your input and the knowledge that you gain over a period of time, and it's not going to happen overnight.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Going back to what we were saying about cycling, how much more speed can you buy? It's exactly the same with cameras. How much more better can you buy? And well, I think the percentages are very small, aren't they, really?
The
Whereas
percentages are very small.
you could spend the money you've got, say, right now, this year, on education and improve your photography. If there is a quantifiable way to measure improvement by, 25, 30, 40%, 100%, depending on where you are in your journey?
Definitely from that point of view, that comes from knowledge and tutelage. I think you're right on the percentage as regards to what a new camera would give to you. I think it's about right, around about 5%. I really do. Because 9 times out of 10,
expense.
Exactly, a great expense. Even if you do get lucky to trade your camera in at a good price. What's the new camera? Invariably, a new camera gives you faster focus, a quicker switch on time, and then maybe, just to cut it to the quick, a couple of new filters or simulation, and a few more megapixels. But again, we've spoken about megapixels. That's not the be-all and end-all. Having more megapixels on your sensor. So exactly. I think it's something which the guys out there should really, really think hard about it.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think you can very quickly get stuck on this trap where you will end up buying the same iteration of the same camera every 12 months, and you'll end up in debt in no time.
Well, I always remember when the iPhone first hit the scene, and I always remember a guy saying, "I'm not going to buy iPhone 2. I'll be buying iPhone 4. I'll be buying every other version," which gave him a good 18 months break, sometimes 2 years break, in between each iteration. And of course there is a significant change in the quality of each camera. I'm now on iPhone 7 and I went 3, 5 and 7. I've never gone on the even numbers because it's just, I felt there's no need for that regular change of phone. Same applies to cameras.
I agree. I'm totally with you all the way. So, so I think I just want to encourage people, I think, really to consider investing in themselves rather than in camera companies and cameras. I think that's my point today.
Just spill the tea.
I think, long story short, a lot of people at their current point in time are not able to realise the full technical extent and capability of the camera because they are not good enough. The camera is better than they are able to make use of. Yeah. That might sound harsh, offensive, rude to some, but it's true. And I think until you reach the ceiling with the camera, until you know what 1/60th of a second of the shutter speed sounds like, don't upgrade. Until you know that until the camera manufacturer stops supporting that camera and the battery door won't close anymore, and
that's it. All
just
these
don't
things
get rid
are
of it. Just keep going with
using it and learn it.
Yeah.
Read the manual.
I've got my original OMD EM5 Mark 1,
right,
and I don't think I will ever get rid of it. Not because I want to keep it as a collector's item, not because I'm going to be sentimental about it, because it was my first OMD.
Yeah.
But mostly because I know the camera so well, and because its resale value now is so low, it's kind of got more usable value to me than it has cash value to me or to anyone else.
Exactly. What's that camera going to be when you put it on eBay? 150 quid is probably not worth it. The point of putting it on sale after you pull the commission. As you can see, the lights have been dimmed. That doesn't mean to say that the Polo bar is closing. This is a 24/7 bar, cafe. 24/7. Even open on Christmas Day, I believe.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Impressive.
So very impressive. They work bloody hard in here, and thanks to them for allowing us to do this show tucked away in the corner.
I kind of feel like we're being kicked out.
We're not being kicked out. They're just dimming the lights. So I think we've covered every aspect.
I think we have. I think we do need to give a mention to Sunday the 30th of April here in London. Sunday the 30th of April here in London, we have a photo walk. You may have heard about it. We've mentioned it once or twice because we are very, very keen to get out on the streets with you guys, with the photographers out there, and share with you what we know, to discuss photography, catch up with some old friends, meet some new friends. And look, even if no one turns up, I'm still going to be on the streets of London with my camera doing what I love most. So
exactly right.
Come along on Sunday. If I haven't mentioned it, I'll mention it now. It's totally free.
Yep.
Because how can we charge you for walking around the streets of London on Sunday with us?
Exactly right.
There are going to be. I've had over 75 people subscribe via email alone for this event. I don't anticipate or expect at all that half of them will turn up, and that's fair. But that still means I expect about 30 or so people to be there.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, come see us. I do ask that you register for the event, not because I'm farming for email addresses, although thank you very much for letting me know. I can reach out with you directly, but because if, for example, the event has to be cancelled, there's a tornado forecast, if I become unwell, something like that, then of course I have to let you know about the cancellation. Although you'll still be there if something happens to me.
I'm going to be there.
It'll go ahead regardless, really.
I'll be there.
Yeah, we're too close now.
Southwester and everything.
I've got a wedding on Saturday, so unless I break a leg, right?
Exactly, break a leg on that one, yeah, exactly right.
I hope we don't jinx that.
Go to Michael Ramel Photography, you'll get all the details on there with regards to the show. Obviously on the Facebook link ups as well. Give you all the details, shows you where we're meeting up.
So it's michaelramel.com/events.
Sorry.
And the London event is there. Click that, fill out the little form at the bottom. That'll let me know that you're coming, and then on Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on when I get round to it, you'll get an email just to confirm the route, the final route, one last time, and then we will see you Sunday, Carnaby Street, at the Department for Coffee and Social Affairs, which is a little coffee shop. Wonderful coffee, right?
It's superb coffee.
And we'll be meeting at 1 for a 1:30 start.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks for watching Camera Aspects tonight, and Michael will be posting this up very shortly. You saw a little bit on Facebook Live, and there's a little bit of a preview. Follow us on the cameraaspects.com, on the Facebook page, Camera
Subscribe
Aspects.
on YouTube as
Subscribe
well
on
to get
YouTube,
more like this.
And on iTunes, Stitcher.
Yes.
He's doing all the work. And
I am.
it's fantastic. Yes,
No, it's great fun. It's great fun.
Good. And we'll see you next week.
We'll be back here next week.
We'll see you on Sunday, but we'll be back here next week.
Should we do a show on Sunday?
We'll do a couple of
We'll see.
videos,
We'll get some people interviewed on Sunday. Yeah. If there's a subject that you would like us to touch on, something you want us to discuss, then get in touch at Mike and Paul at cameraaspects.com.
That's right.
I had to put a question mark at the end there because I couldn't remember whether it was .co.uk or .com.
No, it's .com.
Yeah, Mike and Paul at cameraaspects.com.
That's it.
Let us know and we'll talk about something. So
Superb.
see you soon.
All the best.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys. Bye.
Thank you.